My name is Tom Stout. I'm chairman of the Department of Marketing and Transportation Administration in the Graduate School of Business at Michigan State University. Let us consider now a rather sophisticated professional point, one that many observers have said is above the capacity of the salesman. I don't really believe that, because I believe today's professional salesman, conscientiously going about his job, has the capacity to gain knowledge quite beyond the capabilities that were demonstrated in the early days of selling. Now, in today's complex industrial society and the increasingly severe competition all companies face, there's a detailed process of effort that goes together in the hopes that in the end we'll have strong market performance. The corporation starts with objectives. It starts with the rate of growth it would like to achieve, the share of market it would like to obtain, and other objectives that relate to its welfare and all of the participants in this whole system of action. Now, to achieve those objectives, we must have strong market impact and market performance in order to accomplish them. That means the corporation must very carefully study these markets in which it sells its products, the size of the market, the segments of the market, the makeup in general and specifically, and project that into the future, because it gets ready today to be effective tomorrow. Also, it must understand the motivations in the market. Why do people buy cars? What's important to them? What are the trends taking place in these markets? If the corporation knows these markets in great detail, then it has to have the right product lines to put into those markets in order that you can be effective in your job. If it has the right product lines, it must have good coverage of these markets. Also, we have to communicate effectively with those markets. And we spend a great deal of money between our promotion and our advertising and the job you do in your showroom in order that we gain the sales that lead us to the achievement of the objectives for the system as a whole, the attainment of your objectives and that of the dealership and that of the corporation. Now, to maintain that state of adjustment finally means adjusting its products to the customers it's serving. And here you become the key link. At Michigan State University some years ago, we made a rather small study of what differentiated the successful automobile salesman from the unsuccessful one, using as a criterion those salesmen in the upper 25% of sales in their dealership and those in the lower 25%. One of the key things that came out was that the best salesmen were planners. They were good planners. The vast assortment of information you must have today requires a far more orderly process than may have been effective at an earlier period. It's extremely important to this whole system that you adapt carefully and efficiently and effectively and persuasively a fund of knowledge so that at any given moment you can call forward exactly the right points and sequence of points to be truly effective. The system as a whole is really designed to keep Chevrolet and this whole program of action in a good state of adjustment with its markets and its competition to the attainment of your objectives and that of the dealership and that of the corporation. And here you become the key link. So I would urge on you this continued growth not alone as an individual, in all of the various dimensions, but growth in product knowledge, growth in market knowledge, growth in the processes behind the point of sale, growth in those things after the sale that increasingly make for satisfied use of the product. This is the challenge to you, to add each week, perhaps even each day, to the sum of knowledge that you can bring to bear on both your strategy and your tactics in order to maximize the prospect of being in that upper 25%.
This is Bentley Barnabas. I'm with Associated Personnel Technicians of Wichita, Kansas. Today, I want to talk to you about some general things which characterize successful people. Naturally, everyone wants to be a success, although each person has a different definition of success for himself. Now, the job of an industrial psychologist is to find out what constitutes the difference between successful individuals and persons with less success, or even those who fail to reach their goals. This is my job. I've been doing it for years, all through the full span of job levels and job types. And I find that there is one big difference between people who attain their goals, who achieve their definition of success, and those who don't make it. Now, of course, there are a lot of minor or contributing differences, but this one big difference I define as self-programming. Successful people are self-programmed. This is the one big difference. If you study a group of successful people, you find that those who reach their goals program their progress toward their goals. First of all, by setting goals, and second, by charting their course to reach them. These men, early in life, some of them as early as in their early 20s, some of them in their 30s, program themselves toward a definite goal. Several months ago, you decided to join the growth program. Your decision became a part of your self-programming. You were programming yourself toward this goal of becoming a certified transportation counselor. It's not only the setting of goals and programming toward those goals that constitutes a successful person. The successful persons that I have studied closely have also had as a part of their programming the ability to reject programming from others around them that was negative. They did not accept or put into their program ideas or influences which would interfere with their progress toward their goals. If someone laughed at them or ridiculed their goals, they were able to disregard these negative influences. If someone urged them to do something they didn't believe was right and proper in terms of furthering their goals, they stood pat. They showed a keen sense of discrimination in selecting the ideas they accepted from others to incorporate into their self-programming. So let's say that your success is going to be governed by the degree to which you are self-programmed. Self-programmed both in terms of initiating your own program, your own goals, your own concept of success, and setting the organized, systematic approach toward attaining those goals, and also rejecting negative influences in your life which interfere with or obstruct your progress toward these goals. With your goals set, and with your own compatible system for reaching those goals well programmed, the third and final step is to keep everlastingly at the program which will get you where you want to go. Make your system work for you. Each day, Build the habit patterns that will keep you advancing toward the goals you have set. As we program ourselves toward our future, toward what we want to have happen tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, we actually are making it happen, causing it to happen just as we planned.
My name is Dr. Mortimer R. Feinberg. I am a professor of psychology at the Baruch College of the City University of New York and president of an industrial psychological consulting organization known as BFS Psychological Associates. The interesting challenge that we're all involved in is managing ourselves, our own time, our own personalities, our own resources. You don't have to be an executive who has other people responsible to him in order to utilize management principles. And I think the cardinal principle of management is summarized best by an old sales pro that I knew who said that good managers make maximum use of resources. We have to be able to get the best out of ourselves that we can. What does that mean? Well, it means the best out of ourselves in the utilization of our time. It means the best out of ourselves in the utilization of our energies. It means the best out of ourselves in learning from the past. It means managing ourselves, our own time, our own personalities, our own resources, to get the best out of ourselves that we can.
This is Dr. Earl Strong, Assistant Dean and Professor of Management in the College of Business Administration at the Pennsylvania State University. Today I should like to talk about managing yourself. Each person must learn to become an effective self-manager. The managerial skills or functions are the skills that the manager must not only learn, but he must learn to practice. And the word skill is used purposefully because it means that you must practice these in order to make them effective. These managerial skills, planning, organizing, motivating, directing, and controlling, exist in all organizational structure, from the simplest structure to the most complex. In other words, you must have an organization structure around which you work, and the company for which you are working has that structure, and you're a part of it. How well you know each of these phases or functions will depend largely upon your interest in them, how you study them, the depth to which you study them, and how you practice them. Actually, you go through these 5 steps or skills every day of your life many times. These are natural skills. They're natural steps that we take, that all of us take, and no matter what kind of work we do. The difference is, of course, that when you do these purposefully and do them with understanding and knowledge, you will undoubtedly do them better and certainly more effectively. In terms of training and your own self-development, you must set up your own system that will be compatible to you and will meet your own needs. This is in terms of your attitude training, your capacity to know, and your skills. In each case, determine what you wish to do, how you wish to work out your own system, and how you wish to meet your needs in working it out. It has been my experience that the person who is really and truly effective on the job has set up his own training program and has self-developed along lines that are compatible to his own system. Both you and your organization have goals. Your organization provides the work environment for you to satisfy your needs and assists in achieving your goals. When these organization goals and your goals are compatible, then your chances for self-achievement are substantially increased. There's been a great deal of study about you. What makes you up? What makes you tick? And in summarizing some 14 studies that have been made about you, there are certain conclusions that we can reach. We find that you are made up of three major areas of activity that make you effective. First is your intellectual capacity. Secondly, your emotional stability. And third, your relations with others. How they're integrated and how you practice them has much to do with your success. You have these qualities and traits or characteristics to a certain degree. When you find that you are wanting in any one of them, then these very well may be guides to your own self-development.
I'm David Swartz. I think that if we really want to grow, if we want to get better and better, all of us in selling must conquer the worst disease that those of us in selling face every day. And this disease I've labeled excuse-itis. It's a disease we have in which we give excuses instead of delivering results. And it takes on many forms. One form is health excuse-itis. I'll bet that before this week is out, you will hear many people tell you something to the effect that, I just don't feel a bit good. And you'll hear some say, I haven't felt a bit good all fall. And you'll see them in April, they'll say, I ain't felt a bit good all spring. And you'll see them in August, they'll say, I ain't felt a bit good all summer. There's some folks just don't feel a bit good. And of course, I don't know about you, but my doctor and I have worked out a very simple and concise dividing line between good health and bad. If you're alive, you're in good health. And I want you, as you listen to this record, I want you to become completely and forever cured of excuse-itis. Excuse-itis, as you know, is a disease of failures. It is a disease of mediocre people. We are all better than we think we are. That person on your left is only half as smart as you think. But meanwhile, the person who is seated in your seat is twice as smart as you think. All of the men who really succeed at selling are basically ordinary men who decide to do extraordinary things.
This is Dr. John S. Wright, Dean of the Graduate School of Business and Economics at the United States International University, San Diego. The salesman's biggest problem probably is self-management. All of us are interested in maximizing our productivity, getting the most out of our effort. This requires a great deal of management. And management of your time is one of the critical areas. Let's analyze how we use our time, see if we can't be more efficient in its use, see if we can't be more productive. The time you have is limited, and you should find out really, where is my time going? And then cut out those unproductive uses of time. Sometimes men think they are productive because they are busy, they are active, they are moving. This is not necessarily productive. First of all, you identify and eliminate those activities which make no contribution at all. They have no value at all. They're a pure waste of time. These stand out like the proverbial sore thumb. The salesman hopes, of course, that he will use most of his time in face-to-face interchange with customers or prospects. This is not always possible by the very nature of the automobile business. There are times when you cannot be in face-to-face contact or conversation with prospects. And this is important time. Sometimes it's called non-selling time, but really shouldn't be viewed as non-selling time. It's getting ready for selling. It's planning for selling. And how the salesman manages this time is very important. What are some of these non-selling activities that can be productive during the non-selling times? Here we might look at the football game as an example. Football game is 60 minutes long. We have a team which is pretty good. It's averaging 4 yards per run. The only way to get a big score, however, is to run more plays in the 60 minutes. Now, the salesman has the same situation. He has only so many hours in the day which he can effectively sell. And what we would like to look at is how to run more plays during that selling period in the day. How can this be done? Well, one way, of course, is through planning. The activity has to be planned. It has to be aimed at an objective, at a goal. The mere shuffling of papers, the sending out of literature, the wild calling of prospects may or may not be productive. One way, I think, is to shorten your presentation. I think you'd be surprised at the places where your sales presentation, good as it is, could be improved, could be shortened, and this saves you quite a bit. Another way, of course, is to stretch the work day and the work week. Are there opportunities for breakfast meetings, for instance, with customers? That's starting pretty early in the day, but it's surprising the number of businessmen, for instance, who are used to morning meetings or breakfast meetings. They would not resent a chance to talk about a car or purchase of a car at a breakfast meeting. Assuming you can schedule 3, 4, or 5 of these a week, over a year, you broaden a great deal. One of the things that can be done, of course, is building your prospect list, using the different techniques learned in the prospecting phase of the growth program. Another way in which this time can be used is to engage in a meaningful program of follow-up on customers and non-customers. Consolidate the time that you have to the maximum benefit. You can expand the day either in selling, actual face-to-face selling time, or in planning, managing your time. Plan your activity and then give it your all.
This is Dr. Feinberg again. When you move up the ladder, God gives you more of everything, more status and more money and more cars and more love, but doesn't give you any more time. Therefore, if you are going to aspire to be the best you can be, you have to take time and get leverage out of it. Most of you are capable, obviously, of organizing your own time. You're now sitting and listening to this industrial psychologist. You're obviously organizing your time now, and you are now doing what I referred to earlier, which is making the maximum use of your resources. And there are some very important uses of time. One of the most important critical uses is to use small bits of it meaningfully. Do you wait till you have an hour to study? If you study for 10 minutes, you can make a lot more mileage out of your time than if you wait for an hour, because you're never going to have an hour. One of the most important keys is you make good use of small bits of time. I'll make that phone call now. I'll organize myself so that before I come in the morning, I've got what I want to do planned out. We have to be able to make time work for us and not be our enemy, which it is often. You can do an awful lot if you know how to use time. Making time, leverage out of time, I think is a very critical challenge for all of us.
This is Bentley Barnabas again. Sometimes we can learn valuable principles from what others tell us, including prospects and customers. I was invited to talk to a manufacturing executive of a principal client of our company about a proposal that we had made to do certain research testing of their personnel. I arrived promptly at 4 o'clock because I knew this executive was a very efficient person in regard to time. We started talking immediately. At 22 minutes after 4, he looked at his watch, and I was a little concerned. I said, "Do you have an appointment?" No, go right ahead, Bentley. I don't have an appointment. Just go ahead." I went on And at 35 minutes after 4, I started to close the sale by saying, "Now we can start this work next week." He said, "That's fine. You talk to the personnel department and set it up." Then he went on. Now, you wondered why I looked at my watch at 22 minutes after 4. At that point, you answered the only question that was in my mind concerning whether we were to go ahead with this program or not. The remaining 13 minutes were wasted, both as far as you're concerned and as far as I was concerned. I was ready to close then. Well, you see, I enjoyed talking about our company's services. I enjoyed it so much that I passed up a chance to close. And in so doing, I risked the chance of talking myself out of a sale. This experience taught me to be more customer-oriented in managing myself. If I'd been studying that client carefully, I wouldn't have missed the chance to finish in 22 minutes instead of 35 minutes, saving my time as well as his.
This is Dr. Strong again. A person finding himself with a weakness in any one of these areas of development should make it a point to deliberately throw himself into situations where he will have the opportunity to practice. This is not always easy to do because we tend to do the things that we like to do or we find easy to do or that we get a great deal of enjoyment out of. But for example, if you find difficulty in social competence and you feel ill at ease with groups, then you should make it a point to get with groups and get in the habit of working with them and thereby overcome a weakness that may be inherent in this area. In other words, it is coming to grips positively with those areas where you feel definite weaknesses. And then you should continually rate yourself on them. How well am I doing? What improvement am I making? How much improvement should I set up for myself? And how much of a goal do I wish to achieve in any one of them? By constantly urging yourself along and prodding yourself in these various areas, I think that you can make real progress. And I think that you'll find yourself coming out with definite improvement in all of them.
I'm Barton Gaines Brugg. I'm upstate Dutch, and that's why the name sounds as it does. I'm here primarily because I've been a business economist now for, almost a third of a century. Now, I suppose you're wondering, and I wouldn't blame you, what it is a business economist does. Well, in essence, my job over these 30 years has been to set up and grow familiar with a system of what we call economic intelligence, understanding how our business system operates. Well, we had built a model of the USA for the year 1975, and we thought by that time we might have reached a $1 trillion economy. We're actually going to reach the $1 trillion economy not by 1975, but by 1970 or 1971. Right now, we're about an $850 billion economy. So what I've just told you is that there'll be about another $100 or $150 billion worth of expansion between the present and the early 1970s, and growth, in our judgment, will continue to come. Now let's talk about why we think that business will continue to be good, although it won't be as rich a cream diet, perhaps, as we had in late 67 and early 68. Well, one of the reasons is that consumers continue to spend freely. They have not only been spending, but they've also been saving at a rather high rate. As we look down the road, the picture the economist presents is one of further growth. Our population will grow. Our population will be more skilled and better educated in the future than it has been in the past. Technology is working on our side. All of this then should contribute toward additional growth in the next 10 years, in much the same way that it has contributed to growth in the past. This Martin Gainsborough again, in much the same way that we have a system of economic intelligence for the nation, there are economic statistics for the states and for the cities and for the counties that a salesman, an alert salesman, should be following. The unemployment figures here are available on a state and a county and a city basis, as well as on a national basis. And from this you can begin to see whether the trends in your community are moving in the right direction. Another very sensitive tool that I have frequently recommended for this purpose is the hours of work in your city or in your state or in your county. Employers are extremely sensitive to payments for overtime. And one way you can begin to tell that demand may not be as strong in the future as in the past is when overtime starts to be eliminated. The first month or two in which there is some slowing up in order books of a factory is the very time in which the manager of that factory will be saying to his personnel officer, must we continue to pay overtime or can't we start cutting back on the length of the work week? So watch your figures on employment and unemployment. Watch the hours of work. Another very good measure for most communities is electric power consumption, because most of the things that we produce require the use of electric energy. And so from your local public utility, you can very often get information as to whether the particular community in which you happen to live is drawing more or less power now than it did a year ago or a month ago. The local Chamber of Commerce is very often in the position to supply similar information. Another sensitive indicator are the so-called bank debit figures, bank clearances. If the banks are handling a larger volume of deposits and checks during the course of a week than in the preceding week, this usually means that the town is doing better that week than in the preceding week. Conversely, if bank debits and bank clearances are declining, there's good reason to believe that general economic activity in your community may be declining. These are some of the measures that I would suggest at the local level.
This is Walter Johnson again. If you want to be a really effective salesman, you have to live salesmanship. You have to be thinking in every one of your waking moments of the opportunities, the ideas, and the little things that come up that ultimately turn into opportunities for making sales. Actually, an alertness to all selling opportunities is an integral element in the performance and habit patterns of top-notch salesmen. More and more, salesmen must become self-motivated managers of their time and effort. They must acquire an ability to distinguish between profitable and unprofitable prospects, and then evaluate the time and effort needed to cultivate and to close these sales, and to properly allocate their own time and their own skills accordingly. In effect, as a salesman, the only asset you have to sell is your own time and your own skill, and the management of those things are what will determine ultimately whether or not you are a successful salesman, a successful manager of your own time and your own ability. I believe, as I said before, that a salesman needs to constantly review the latest things in his field to keep himself alert and on top of his job.